What event made you see your mom in a whole new light? I was 14 when my mom lost her job. She'd been the financial analyst at her firm for 7 years. That night, I discovered her in our basement surrounded by dusty boxes of old photography equipment. Within days, she'd converted the laundry room into a darkroom. Dad kept pressuring her to find real work, but she barely acknowledged him anymore. She'd vanish for hours, capturing forgotten corners of our town that everyone else ignored. I started noticing the dark circles forming under her eyes. Some nights, I'd wake at 4 a.m. to find her still hunched over her desk, editing photos until sunrise. "I'm fine," she'd insist, downing another coffee. The arguments between my parents intensified. "This photography nonsense is bankrupting us," Dad would shout. Mom's voice grew quieter each time, but she never stopped. 6 months later, I found her collapsed on the darkroom floor. The paramedics couldn't revive her. "Cardiac failure due to extreme exhaustion," the doctor said. I was numb, empty, until I found her journal while packing her things. Through tear-stained pages, I read words that shattered me. "Every photo I sell gets Tyler one step closer to college. Nothing else matters." She never got to see how her sacrifice paid off. The memorial exhibition sparked interest from a major curator. Her photographs of overlooked places now hang in galleries nationwide. The woman who died making sure I had a future became renowned for showing the world what it had failed to see.
I found my mom's old diary in my stepdad's office, and what I discovered changed everything. I was cleaning out boxes in the attic when I found it, a small blue notebook with flowers on the cover. I thought it was just another photo album, but when I opened it, I saw my mom's handwriting from 15 years ago. I knew I shouldn't read it, but one sentence caught my eye. "I can't tell anyone the real reason I left Mark. Mark was my real dad, who mom always said abandoned us when I was 3. My hands were shaking as I kept reading. The truth hit me like a truck. My dad hadn't abandoned us at all. Mom left him because she was scared. He had a gambling problem and lost their entire savings, their house, everything. She wrote about how he begged her to stay, promised to change, but she couldn't risk it with a baby to protect. But here's the crazy part. My stepdad Dave knew about this diary. I found a note stuck between the pages in his handwriting. "Use this if she ever tries to leave." He was keeping it as insurance, threatening to tell me the truth if mom ever divorced him. I took pictures of every page and drove straight to my mom's work. When I showed her, she broke down crying. She admitted Dave had been using this secret to control her for years. She was too ashamed to tell me the truth about Dad, and too scared of losing me if she left Dave. I hugged her and said, "Mom, you protected me once by leaving Dad. Now let me protect you." We packed her bags that night. Dave came home to an empty house and a note that said, "I found the diary. Game over. Now Mom and I are starting over." And yesterday, I got a text from my real dad. Turns out he's been sober for 12 years, waiting for a chance to make things right. I witnessed a teacher destroying a child's spirit, and I'll never forgive myself for not doing more. I was giving a presentation in a 3rd grade classroom when I noticed him, a sweet boy sitting alone in the back corner. His desk was pushed far away from everyone else's, like he was being punished just for existing. The moment he raised his hand, the teacher snapped at him to put it down. Throughout my entire presentation, she kept making cruel comments. "This is the worst class I've ever had. These kids are impossible." Every time a student tried to participate, she'd shut them down. I could see the other kids glancing at him, some with pity, others too scared to show any reaction at all. I watched this bright-eyed boy shrink smaller and smaller. When he tried answering a question, she'd roll her eyes. When he got excited about something, she'd make him feel stupid. His shoulders would slump a little more each time, like he was trying to disappear. I told his mom that day to get him moved to a different class. She said it was too complicated, that it might make things worse, but she was wrong. A year later, I saw him again. That spark in his eyes was gone. His mom told me he barely speaks up anymore, too afraid of being humiliated. She cried as she told me how he used to love school, how he'd come home buzzing with excitement about learning new things. I should have fought harder. I should have reported that teacher. Now I have to live with knowing I let a bully destroy a child's love of learning forever.
What's a company secret you can share now that you don't work there anymore? I worked night security at a luxury high-rise condo building in Miami. The secret? The building's foundation was cracking, and management knew it for years. I discovered it when I noticed the basement security cameras kept tilting slightly. Investigating, I found massive cracks they'd hastily painted over. When I texted photos to my supervisor, he called me at 3 a.m. "Delete those now. The repair would bankrupt the association. They've been hiding it since 2017. The next night, the building manager offered me $10,000 cash to forget what I saw. Said they were managing it, and repairs would cause panic. When I refused, he threatened me. "You've got a daughter at Miami Central, right? Would be a shame if your employment history made it impossible to pay her college tuition." I went straight to my cousin, who works for the city inspector's office. Within 48 hours, the building was evacuated. The news crews arrived as residents carried whatever they could grab. The manager spotted me watching from across the street and lunged at me, screaming. The punch he threw at me was captured live on Channel 7. 3 months later, the building was condemned. My testimony sent 2 board members and the manager to prison for criminal negligence. That $10,000 hush money he offered, the DA found he'd taken it directly from the elderly residents' emergency fund. I lost my job, but saved 340 lives. What's the fastest you've wiped a smirk off of someone's face? My stepfather was a master of psychological warfare. His favorite game? Finding little ways to make me feel worthless. If I got 98% on a test, he'd ask why it wasn't 100%. If I cleaned my room perfectly, he'd find a speck of dust I missed. But his favorite power move involved the dishes. Every night I'd be washing when he'd stroll in, plunge his hand into my dishwater and dramatically pull it out. "This water is ice cold. Start over." Didn't matter if I was almost done. I had to dump everything and begin again. The worst part was that smirk as he walked away. His control issues extended to everything. He'd measure the lawn with a ruler after I mowed it, making me redo sections that were too long. Once he threw away my science project the night before it was due because I left it on the dining table instead of my desk. Learning responsibility, he called it. When my mom tried standing up for me, he'd shut her down with, "I won't have my stepson turning into a useless man." He did all this while maintaining a perfect public image. The involved parent volunteering at school events. I tried so hard to please him. Waking up earlier, double-checking everything, nothing worked. The goalposts always moved. After my birthday dinner where he accidentally knocked over my cake reaching for salt nobody needed, I'd had enough of his games. One day, after a particularly cruel comment about my college chances, I heard his car pull up. I quickly emptied the sink, boiled a pot of water, poured it in with soap to create innocent bubbles, and stepped back. When he walked in and reached for the water without looking, his hand plunged into the boiling liquid. His face instantly changed from smug to shocked as he yanked his hand out. He never tested my dishwater again. The next day, we got a dishwasher.
My foster parents taught me to fake illness for attention, so I faked it in front of the judge and watched them face 15 years. The Hendersons collected sick kids like trophies. They had the whole routine down. Take in foster children with chronic conditions, milk the sympathy, pocket the extra government benefits meant for our medical care. I was their star patient. Type 1 diabetes, severe asthma, anxiety disorder. Perfect for their sob story collection. Remember, sweetheart, Mrs. Henderson would whisper before every doctor visit. You're getting worse, not better. Mommy needs those disability checks. She taught me to hyperventilate on command, how to make my blood sugar readings look unstable, which symptoms got the most concerned looks from social workers. The training started when I was 8. She'd make me practice in front of the bathroom mirror for hours. Slower breathing, Emma. You need to look like you're dying, not just tired. If I couldn't produce the right wheeze, she'd make me run laps until my lungs actually burned. There, she'd say, as I gasped for real. Remember that feeling? She had a whole medical vocabulary she'd coached me on. Tell them the chest pain is sharp, not dull. Sharp gets you admitted faster. She knew which emergency rooms had the most sympathetic staff, which doctors asked the fewest questions. We'd sit in hospital waiting rooms while she performed for other parents. Poor Emma's been in and out of ICU 12 times this year. We're barely surviving financially. Strangers would slip her 20s. Churches would organize fundraisers. The medical bills were always paid by insurance, but she kept the donations. She had a whole rotation of stories. Sometimes I was an orphan whose parents died in a car crash. Sometimes I was abandoned by drug addicts. The details changed, but the tragedy was always fresh enough to make people reach for their wallets. The grocery store was her favorite hunting ground. She'd park me by the pharmacy, tell me to look pale and shaky. My daughter's diabetic, she'd tell concerned shoppers, and we can't afford her insulin this month. People would literally hand her cash on the spot. She made $300 once from a single Target run. The other kids caught on. Tommy had fake seizures. Sarah's cancer was just strategic makeup, but I was the crown jewel. Mrs. Henderson would brag to her sister on the phone about how much money my conditions brought in. Emma's worth more than the other 3 combined. That diabetes is like winning the lottery. She kept detailed records too. Which symptoms worked best in which neighborhoods? How much each emergency room visit netted in sympathy donations? She had a whole Excel spreadsheet tracking our performances. The medical appointments were the worst part. She'd coach me beforehand on exactly what to say, then sit in the room nodding sympathetically while I lied to doctors who genuinely wanted to help. The seizures are getting worse, I'd say, watching her smile behind the doctor's back. Sometimes I forget whole days. Dr. Martinez, my neurologist, would order expensive tests she knew I didn't need. The insurance covered everything, but she'd tell the billing department we were struggling financially. They'd waive our copays out of pity. She even coached me on how to cry. Not too much, Emma. You want to look brave, not dramatic. Brave gets you more money. Everything changed when I turned 14 and overheard her laughing on the phone. The doctors think Emma's dying, she cackled. This diabetes scam is paying for our vacation to Florida. I found her draft GoFundMe post the next day. Stage 4 diabetes complications. Emma needs experimental treatment we can't afford. There's no such thing as stage 4 diabetes. She was just making stuff up. When CPS finally investigated, I sat in family court and gave the performance of my lifetime, made myself hyperventilate until I collapsed right in front of the judge. As they handcuffed her, Mrs. Henderson screamed, "You ungrateful brat! I taught you how to get sympathy!" "Yeah," I gasped, "and you taught me exactly who deserved it. 20 years total. Best acting lesson I ever got."